don't have to believe in magic to build rockets, but you do have to believe in something bigger than yourself. Look, people always assume I'm not a spiritual person because I'm an engineer, because I ask questions, because I build hardware. But I'll tell you something I rarely say in public. I don't pray out loud, but I still do it. Prayer for me isn't performance. It's not ritual. It's not something I broadcast. It's personal, internal, quiet, and it's not about asking for things. It's about aligning with a purpose that transcends the noise of the world. Let me explain. Look, people think innovation is loud, that it's shouting in meetings, whiteboards covered in diagrams, big product launches, noise, energy, hype. But that's not how real breakthroughs happen, not for me. The biggest ideas I've ever had, starting Tesla, founding SpaceX, imagining a colony on Mars, they didn't come when I was surrounded by people. They came in silence, in solitude, usually late at night. No phones, no distractions, just me and the problem. And that's something most people overlook. Silence isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of clarity. See, when you strip away the external inputs, when you're not reacting to emails or notifications or other people's opinions, you create space, and in that space, something happens. You start to hear your own thoughts, not the ones conditioned by society or fear or expectation. I mean the raw, unfiltered ones, the ones that feel almost downloaded. You hear solutions, patterns, connections you didn't notice before. That's the space where vision is born. I remember walking alone late one night in Palo Alto, thinking about global warming and the future of energy. I wasn't in a lab, I wasn't in a brainstorm session. I was just alone, thinking, asking myself, what if cars weren't the problem, but the key? Oh, that's how Tesla began. Not with noise, with silence. Same thing with SpaceX. People thought it was insane to try to build rockets privately. Governments had done it with billions in funding and thousands of engineers. But I sat with that doubt quietly and asked, is it truly impossible or just inconvenient for the current model? That silence helped me sort signal from noise. It let me see that reusable rockets weren't just an idea, they were a necessity. That clarity became vision, that vision became action. Here's the hard truth. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They confuse stillness with laziness. They think if you're not talking or doing, you're wasting time. But real builders, real visionaries understand that silence is part of the process. You're not being idle. You're listening. You're thinking in layers. You're solving problems no one else sees because no one else is quiet long enough to see them. You can't download insight from chaos. You need signal. And that only comes when you mute the noise, when you let your mind settle like dust in a room. You begin to see clearly, and once you see clearly, you can build what no one else has the guts to imagine. People ask me, what do you do when you're stuck on a problem? I say, I go silent. I remove the noise, I focus. I don't try to force the solution, I let it emerge, and more often than not, it does. So, yeah, maybe I don't pray the traditional way, but those quiet moments, those deep, focused silences are the closest thing I know to it. It's when I ask big questions, and sometimes I get answers. We're living in a world of constant distraction, but if you want to do something extraordinary, if you want to see the future before others, you need to create space for vision, and that starts in silence. That's where every rocket launch begins. That's where every electric car concept is born. That's where innovation whispers before it roars. Silence isn't empty. It's the birthplace of every bold idea. People assume belief and logic are opposites, like you're either a person of faith or you're a person of science. But that binary view, it's outdated. It doesn't match how the world actually works or how innovation happens. Let me put it this way. Belief is a form of code. And whether you're writing software, building rockets, or designing the future, your internal code, what you believe, is the foundation. It drives everything. See, in engineering, we talk about inputs and outputs. Logic flows through circuits. But before you write a single line of code, You need a system architecture, a structure, a conviction that what you're building is even possible. That's belief. You can't write a single line of code if you don't believe it can work. The test the same with life. I've been asked if I believe in God or if I pray. Here's what I say. I believe in intelligence. I believe the universe has patterns, structure, design principles. There's math at the heart of nature. Physics is consistent. The laws of the universe don't change because you want them to. But what does change is how you interact with them. And that comes down to belief. When I started SpaceX, people said it was impossible. Not hard, impossible. Governments had done it with near infinite budgets. Who was I to think a private company could pull it off? But here's the thing. If I didn't believe it could work, I wouldn't have written the first check. And that belief became code, it became blueprints. It became Falcon 1, Falcon 9, Starship. You can't fake belief, and you can't outsource it. It's internal infrastructure. And it gets tested, especially when everything goes wrong, like when 3 launches fail back to back, and we had 1 shot left. No guarantees, no safety net, just belief and the execution that followed. People think belief is soft. It's not, it's structural. Belief is the OS operating system of the human mind. What you believe determines what you attempt. What you attempt determines what you build. What you build becomes reality. And belief is scalable. That's why it spreads. The same way code scales from one machine to millions of devices, belief moves from one person to a team, a company, an industry. Tesla isn't just cars. It's a belief system. A belief that sustainable energy isn't a fantasy, it's a necessity. That cars can be fast, clean, and cool. That the status quo isn't fixed. It's just legacy code waiting to be rewritten. When I pray, if you want to use that word, it's not about asking for favors, it's about aligning myself with first principles, tuning into the truth behind the chaos. It's sitting in silence and asking, what do I truly believe? What matters? What should I build next, even if the world says it's impossible? Because belief isn't passive. It's not sitting around hoping. It's engineering hope into action. And yeah, like code, belief has bugs. You can believe the wrong thing. You can run on corrupted assumptions. That's why reflection matters. That's why you need to debug your belief system constantly. Stay aligned with truth, not trend, with purpose, not pressure. So if you ask me, do you believe in something bigger? Yeah, I do. I believe in the ability of the human mind to decode the universe. I believe in engineering as a form of worship. I believe that vision, real world-changing vision, starts with the code you carry inside. Belief is not separate from science. It's the source code that makes science move. Let me be honest, I'm not big on motivational speeches. I don't wake up thinking about hype or about how things look. I care about whether things work, whether what we're building moves the needle, whether the future we're trying to create becomes real. And here's the thing most people miss. The loudest results don't come from the loudest people. They come from quiet conviction, from those who know what they believe, who don't need constant applause or agreement, who just build. People assume conviction has to look like shouting from the rooftops, rallying the masses, going viral. But that's not how most breakthroughs are born. Conviction, real conviction, is often silent. It doesn't need to advertise itself. It just executes. When I was building Tesla, the world didn't care. The auto industry laughed. The media called it a toy for rich people. Experts said electric cars were dead. We didn't argue. We didn't launch a PR campaign to change their minds. We built, we engineered, we delivered. Model S, then Model 3, then we scaled. Same with SpaceX. The idea of a private rocket company was seen as arrogant, crazy, irresponsible. We didn't run around trying to prove we were serious. We just got to work. We failed fast. We iterated. We learned. And eventually, when the Falcon 9 landed upright, the world heard it loud and clear. Not because we shouted, but because the results are the loudest voice. That's how quiet conviction works. It doesn't fight for attention, it earns it. And conviction isn't just stubbornness, it's not refusing to listen, it's doing the hard thinking, challenging assumptions, running the mental simulations. And when it all checks out, when the logic and the instinct align, you go forward, even if no one claps, especially if no one claps, because most people are reactive. They wait for external validation before taking action. But conviction works the opposite way. It acts first, it commits before the applause. And I'll say this too, conviction is lonely. There were nights I questioned everything, when Tesla was weeks from bankruptcy, when SpaceX had one last launch before we were out of money. There was no cheering crowd in those moments, just me sitting in silence, asking, is it still worth building? And every time the answer was yes, because that's what conviction gives you, clarity under pressure. It doesn't panic when the market panics. It doesn't fold when people laugh. It doesn't inflate when praised or deflate when criticized. It just builds. Think about the Mars project. People still roll their eyes, say it's a distraction, a fantasy. But we're not trying to convince them with talk. We're building Starship, testing it, launching it again and again. Eventually, results speak louder than headlines. Here's the deeper truth. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more builders. People who see what's possible, who commit quietly, who show up daily and ship real work. Not for fame, but for impact. So, yeah, maybe I don't pray out loud. Maybe I don't broadcast every thought, but I act. I build from belief. And when those results come, they make all the noise you'll ever need. If you've got a vision, don't wait for permission. Don't argue with doubters. Don't try to go viral. Just build quietly with conviction. And one day your results will echo so loudly that the world won't be able to ignore them. Because in the end, quiet conviction isn't weak. It's the launch pad for the loudest change. So no, I don't pray out loud, but that doesn't mean I'm not listening. It doesn't mean I'm not asking bigger questions in the silence. In fact, most of what matters, the real decisions, the hard calls, the moments that shape the trajectory of the future, happen in silence. Because that's where vision begins. Not in noise, not in groupthink, but in solitude. In the ability to sit with yourself and imagine something radically better, and then commit to building it no matter the cost. You don't need a crowd to believe in something. You just need one mind willing to see beyond what is. And if you've got belief, real belief, it becomes a kind of code. It rewrites how you see problems, how you approach obstacles. It fuels creativity. It aligns effort. Belief is structural. It's not optional. It's fundamental. And the irony is, the more powerful your belief becomes, the less you have to say about it. You stop selling, you stop defending, you just start building. That's quiet conviction. And it builds everything that matters, from rockets to revolutions. So if you're watching this wondering, do I need to be loud to be heard? The answer is no. You need to be clear, focused, relentless. You need to trust that silence isn't weakness, it's design. That belief is not noise, it's structure. And that conviction doesn't need a spotlight, it creates its own. We don't build the future by talking about it. We build it one decision, one launch, one belief at a time. So go do that.